Hey, it's Jim. We're going to do our full video on the Hiboy Nex5 with some performance testing and a little ride testing. First, I had a suggestion for somebody, and I'm sorry I forgot your name. I'll put it on the screen about showing the scooter in your boot/trunk, depends on where you live. And this is the Hiboy Nex5. It is kind of long. I always put the folded length down in the description, so that's down in the description field. But before I put this little riser thing in here, I had to put this scooter in here diagonally. So even though it folds up, it doesn't fold as small as a lot of other more like compact portable scooters. It is also heavier than advertised at 44 pounds, so it is not a lightweight scooter. I'm just showing you here that a charging brick for the stem battery. And where we're going to start up this video is I rode 26.6 miles, and that depleted both the stem battery and the deck battery. I recharged the stem battery, so we have 1 bar indicator on the deck battery and a full stem battery, and we're going to see where that gets you and how that rides in that scenario. I have not tried it out yet. Okay, as I showed before, the scooter is very easy to fold up. Once it comes up into place here, push that down, you're good to go. In this video, I'm going to cover a number of the things I don't like on the Hiboy. So that might come across as nitpicky, but I'm trying to pick out all those things I think if you bought it, you might have some remorse regarding. So please take in that light. I'm not this picky generally. First thing I'd say is the narrowness of this structural part of the stem bothers me a little bit. I'm going to hold the camera down, and you can actually see that bend there as I push forward. So this is rated up to 265 pound riders. I'm not sure I would trust that. So getting the stem battery in and out is not all that easy or fun. This battery, this key locks area right here is not a high point of the scooter. It feels very cheap, and as you are going to see as we're riding, this makes a lot of noise, and I have what I think is a solution that might work. You can see this key is already bending, and I'm pretty easy on stuff. So hopefully you can see the screen a little bit here. It is turned up to its maximum brightness and is not a bright screen. It gives you speed and distance. Distance resets every time the scooter is powered on and off. It doesn't give you like lifetime odometer. You'll see here I got full inner circle, which is stem battery, and 1 bar on the deck battery. And I'm really curious to see how these work together. These grips do not stay on all that good. They tend to really be moving around on me, so I tend to have to be popping them in. The throttle does feel pretty good, and the button here to change between speed limits so the first limit is actually, it has a picture of a foot, so I think it's pedestrian mode, even though the manual doesn't really talk about it. What it basically does is allows it to go at like walking speed here. It's not even really a riding mode. 2 presses on this button turns you to each of the speed limits. I did this in my initial video, but I'm just going to show you each of the speed limits real quick here. Speed limit 1 is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 miles per hour. So you hear that little beep beep when you move into speed limits. So I'm going to get here in speed limit 2. I'm going to do most of this in speed limit 2. You do get a instantaneous like how much throttle or brake you're using for the feedback, which is a nice feature, provided you can see it, which I really can't right now. So you can hear there, the bike path this is pretty smooth, and you can hear that jingling around of that key. Now I have a piece of tape that I'm going to see if it will quiet it down, but I'm going to really give you a feel for it here in a minute. So I'm going to go off-road right here. So on On bumpier roads, it is borderline obnoxious how loud, and it is not borderline, it is totally obnoxious. It's one of the reasons I haven't been really riding the scooter. I'm not really going to be able to put on all the miles I was hoping to do to see how Hiboy's durability comes out. So in the 16 mile per hour range here in speed limit 2, cruise control is engaged. If you heard the single beep, to get out of cruise control, you either hit the brake or the throttle again. 2 presses on that power button and I'm into speed limit 3. Give you a top speed here real quick. So one of the things I'm most interested in is this scooter does not work without the stim battery in. So I'm curious, it looks to me like the deck battery charge is flashing. So I'm curious if I'm gonna lose, if it's gonna cut out on power when the deck battery goes dead, or if somehow the stim battery is kind of back charging. And I couldn't get an answer from Hiboy on how those are interacting. But for right now, the top speed doesn't seem to be that affected. I thought it would be a little slower because you don't have as much watt hours. But it looks like it's doing pretty good so far. So I'll put on the screen right now my performance results. Acceleration, it was the fastest 36 volt scooter I've tested to date. Braking was just kind of okay. The brake worked just fine. It just doesn't have tons of braking force. It's a little smaller rotor back there. Again, all those specs are down in the description. And hill climb, not all that strong on hill climb. 36 volt scooters, that's really not their forte. And with having a 6-inch high deck, it's a little bit hard to kick along to add input. So, you know, if you really need hill climbing ability, you're probably going to be looking at a higher voltage scooter than a 36 volt. For the 36 volt, you do get a good amount of good efficiency, so you're good at getting good range for your amount of battery and your weight. Some things I like about the Hiboys, I like the audible cruise control. I like knowing when the scooter goes into cruise control. Their app seems like it's pretty good, and value-wise, seem to get a lot of value, and their folding mechanisms always seem to work well. On the negative side, the ride, even though this has a suspension in the back and in the front, which I can feel the one in the back work, one in the front I can't even really feel it work, and I weigh 175 pounds, 8.5-inch solid tires. The ride isn't as bad as a smaller diameter solid tire, but it is not soft at all. I'm going to try one thing that I tried before. I'm going to pull back on the handlebars. So, you know, I talked how that stem was a little noisy. If I pull back on the handlebars, a lot of that noise goes away. So maybe there'd be somehow to shim down at the bottom of the battery to make it fit tighter. You couldn't shim it at the top because that's where the electrical connection comes in. So to me, that brings up some concerns. You know, after a number of miles, if the stem kind of started to bend outward, if you would either have more noise and then maybe potentially have issues with your stem battery making connection. I did cover this in my other video, but when you engage the cruise control, it's based on kind of throttle position more than speed, so it often keeps accelerating after cruise control is engaged, which sometimes is a little bit of an odd feeling. So at 3 miles here, I don't know exactly the mileage. It went down to 3, then back up a little bit. You see, we still got the 1 on the deck battery. So I'm I'm going to turn around because I don't want to be kicking this thing. The kick to start, it takes a different amount of kicking forward force than most scooters do. Sometimes it won't actually catch. All right, well, thanks for joining me on this look at some of the performance and kind of range testing on this Hiboy Nex5. It's an interesting scooter because you're going to be buying it because you want the extra range of the batteries, but the batteries don't work quite like I thought they would, you know. But it seems like I've got a little over, it looks like I'm almost 6 miles. I'll post my relive video from this little range test with the total summary of my range. It does look like it adds range. I don't know how useful that pulling it out and using the charging block really is. I'm not sure if you could keep doing that in perpetuity and not recharging the full thing. I'd probably want to recharge the whole scooter because when you have more range, you get a longer flat spot of that slightly higher voltage. So you actually have a little more power when you're riding for acceleration and hill climbing and that kind of stuff. So, but it's an interesting option. I would love to see these scooters go to like a fully removable battery. That you could store it in your car and you could do some other stuff, which I was hopeful you can do with this, but you would have some potential issues to that in-deck battery. So thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, do all those things, and we'll see you on the next video.
Catch the wave, feel the